Yo, yo, yo. Let's take care of the acid alkaline deception. Roberto Young, the guy who wrote the pH Miracle, was sentenced to prison 2 months ago. So it's over. Of course, many of you haven't heard about this, and a few of you may follow this lie, and that's alright, I'll explain it to you. It was created to promote veganism in the first place, because they portray animal foods as acidic, therefore unhealthy. Plant foods are alkaline and therefore healthy. Of course, they give zero explanations as to why acidity would be bad for us. So when you talk to somebody who follows this religious lie, they will say that it's self-explanatory because it's acidic. And when you want them to explain it, they will give you zero explanations because they don't understand anything. This is not based on science in any way whatsoever. I actually talked to a guy who said that he is made out of plants because he eats plants. That's the kind of people you're dealing with.
In terms of what's in medical textbooks and medical studies, you will not find any reliable medical studies or textbooks that claim that what we eat affects the pH of our blood, because the pH range of our blood is so tightly controlled by our body that it's not possible to alter it just by what we eat. And the reason for this is that even slight changes in the pH or acidity of our blood can lead to very, very serious consequences, including death. So it doesn't make sense from an evolutionary perspective that we would be able to, dramatically lower or raise our pH just by what we eat, or we could, easily kill ourselves off.
These plant molecules are turned into animal molecules because that's what we are made out of. And it's crazy that I had to explain to somebody that he's not made out of plants. How did we even get to this point? When we eat animals, we eat their amino acids, fatty acids. That's what this is made out of. And our stomach acid is strong enough to digest bones. So it's essential for health. But there's always a balance in the blood. This lie is tied to red meat being bad for us, even though we are made out of red meat. Cholesterol being bad for us, even though, as I've said a million times, all of our cells are made out of cholesterol. So what they want to do is change your natural perception of who you are. And of course, it's impossible to change our bodies. But as long as they succeed, they have power over us. When you think of an acidic food, what's the first thing you think of? Fruit, berries, lemons, oranges. And of course they are the most acidic foods there are. And this goes to a whole new level of retarded, because these people will tell you that when you eat lemons, they turn alkaline in the blood. Oh, come on, you're not that stupid. Your body has to work very hard to adjust to these acidic foods, and that's why they are called alkaline forming. It's a joke on you, once again. And of course it's a great business, because then they can sell you these alkaline drops. Come on. I hope nobody buys that anymore. A diet of largely plants will turn the system acidic, guaranteed. And a diet of raw meat will do the opposite. And you just have to try it and you will feel it. A natural diet based on fat would be neutral. So if we would eat blood, meat and fat, the animals, then it would be perfect for us, because we would get all the nutrients and we would prevent our bodies from rotting, because fruit would be rare. And also, tea with dried herbs is over the top acidic. That's why it's called a health food.
In the case of protein and bone health, if you look at these direct markers of bone health, There was, for example, a 2009 meta-analysis in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that looked at 61 different studies, and they found a strong positive association between protein intake and bone health. On the other hand, there have been controlled trials where they've experimentally induced protein deficiency. So they've dramatically, restricted protein intake, and that has led to a deterioration of bone mass, microarchitecture, and strength, which are the hallmarks of osteoporosis. But we can go further. We can also say, what does the research tell us about the importance of protein for bone health? And if you do that kind of review, you will find that there are three potential mechanisms through which higher protein intake positively impacts bone health. Number one is that protein contains a bunch of amino acids that are really important for bone. Number two is that eating more protein increases IGF-1 levels, and IGF-1 in turn increases bone growth and bone mass. And then number three, eating more protein lowers levels of serum parathyroid hormone. And we know that high levels of serum parathyroid hormone are associated with low bone mineral density, high bone turnover, and an increased risk of fractures.
I think that sums it up pretty well.
I'm not done now. Gotta keep going.
Okay.
So animal protein, I think, is especially important for bone health. So far, we've just been talking about the relationship between protein and bone. But we have studies that have shown that changes in muscle and bone mass track together. So that tells us that things that are good for muscle are typically good for bone and vice versa. And we know that leucine is an amino acid that signals that protein's available for muscle synthesis. And animal proteins typically contain high amounts of leucine, which of course then suggests that leucine may play an important role in bone health. We have observational studies that show that a high intake of animal protein is associated with greater bone mineral density and decreased rates of hip fracture, especially in the elderly. And on the other hand, we have studies that show that eating less meat and more plant protein leads to worse bone health. There's a negative association between vegetable protein and bone mineral density in both sexes, and elderly women on vegetarian diets have been shown to have increased risk of osteoporosis. And finally, we have the gold standard randomized clinical trials that have also been shown to where protein has also been shown to benefit bone. For example, there's a 2009 trial in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that found that in postmenopausal women, increasing protein from 10% of calories to 20% of calories improved intestinal calcium absorption and also decreased urinary DPD, which is a marker of bone breakdown, and it increased IGF-1, which, as we just talked about, has several different positive effects on bone health. And then the last thing that I'm going to say is there was a really exhaustive review on this topic published in the Nutrition Journal in 2011. It looked at 55 different trials, 22 of them randomized clinical trials, and the author's conclusion was this: a causal association between dietary acid load and osteoporotic bone disease is not supported by the evidence, and there is no evidence that an alkaline diet is protective of bone health.
Starch becomes carbonic acid in the blood, and again, your body has to neutralize it because of how acidic it is. How? By pulling minerals from your fucking bones. When we eat raw animal foods in their natural state, none of that happens. All animals that eat their natural diet eat the food raw because it pleases their senses. It's the instinct. We understand what we are supposed to eat. So when I walk around here and see green leaves, I don't think about eating them, except if I would be starving. Then I would go and take some little seed, gather them, and try to cook them and somehow get some nutrients out of them, because that's the only way we can do it. We have to process plants because it's not our natural diet. And all food is broken down into acids anyway. It's just that plants are so extreme. Most of these alkaline foods, when you look at their pH, to begin with, it's acidic, and this is something that everybody should look into. This is why our teeth rot when we eat most plants. It starts here and then our body is fucked. Thanks for watching.